today, millions of people are under the gun for severe thunderstorms all the way from Michigan down to Texas. We have two hotspots. One hotspot down here in Texas near Fort Worth, Lawton, Wichita Falls, San Angelo, and Rock Springs, Del Rio. This area, we have a pretty expansive enhanced risk. And we have another bullseye up here south of Chicago near Peoria, Princeton, South Bend, Goshen, Bloomington, these areas. So first, let's take a look at the Texas area. We're going to be looking at the tornado risk. This tornado risk is going to be intense today. We have a significant tornado threat down here in Dallas, Fort Worth, San Angelo, Del Rio, Wichita Falls. All these areas, we have a significant tornado threat. Everywhere in this hatch stippled region, we have a SIG 1 so up to an EF2 tornado maximum. A reasonable maximum of an EF2. So possible EF2s maximum doesn't mean we can't get anything stronger, but I think we have a locally higher tornado threat down here because of the confidence in storms and the thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if we add a 10% risk later on the day in these areas down here, but a 5% hatch risk is what the SPC has. The main risk down here is up to golf ball, softball sized, tennis ball sized hail. We could see hailstones up to 3 to 4 inches in diameter in this SIG 2 hail risk. So the max hail risk today, we could be seeing those huge hailstones up there, up to those huge hailstones. We actually have a mesoscale discussion right now for up to 4.25 inch in diameter peak hail size right now. So we could be seeing some big hail today, as well as some very strong damaging winds up to plus 75 plus mile per hour winds here, with that 30% hatch risk of the higher intensity of these intense significant winds. So keep an eye on that. Now looking up north for our damaging wind risk, we don't have a lot here. We just have a normal 15% risk. So a decent damaging wind threat, but not anything crazy. But we have that hail risk that continues up here. So this is the 30% hatch, not a SIG 2. So we're not going to be expecting up to possibly DVD sized hail, which is insane. That's the maximum, obviously. We're not expecting softballs and DVDs up here, but we're expecting 2 to 3 inches of hail. So that's apple-sized hail, still very destructive in these areas. Now, Chicago, you are included in this highest risk there. In all these areas we mentioned before, you guys are in that significant hail risk. Now, the main threat today is going to be significant tornadoes. This is the SIG 2 15% tornado risk. This is the first SIG 2 of the year. Is out of the new intense tornado outlooks that are the conditional intensity groups that the SPC has issued now, the new kind of outlook format. And these are going to be up to EF3, EF4 tornadoes today. We have that 15% chance, so the highest chance of these significant tornadoes in Peoria, Princeton, Ottawa, Morris, Crown Point, South Chicago, Bloomington, these areas into Knox. We have Fort Wayne, South Bend, Coldwater, and Union City that did get hit by an EF3 the other day, that is still recovering from that, still in that significant tornado threat. So everybody here needs to be paying attention for a very significant tornado threat going into today and into tonight. Now let's dive into the models here. This is the HRRR, the newest HRRR model, and we're looking at the simulated reflectivity. Now going forward a little bit, going to 2-3 p.m., you can see a discrete supercell fires off into the warm sector. This is going to be along our warm front right here. So our boundary where the warm and cold air gets separated, and obviously the warm air is coming from the south. So this is going to fire right next to that boundary right here going into today. We're going to be moving forward, as you can see, supercell right there, continuing into these areas where multiple more supercells form into the Indiana, South Michigan, Ohio area into the day. Now, these could be very intense. Large hail, tornadoes, damaging winds, mainly tornadoes, possibly violent in those areas. That is going to be something to watch today as these continue to go forward. You can see also back here, more storm development. Supercells develop around the cold front back here in Iowa, and storms just develop right there in that kind of triple point-like area. And then we see a full-fledged outbreak. Supercells are going on over here, the earlier ones we were talking about, new supercells are firing over here, and storms are firing on the cold front. These are going to continue into the night. Supercells make it all the way over into Ohio, and then you can see more storm development back here. Now, this looks to turn a little bit linear, but there's always that embedded tornado threat. So storms going into the night, and it looks like more of the Missouri, Iowa, Illinois area into the night for cellular activity and tornadoes. But mainly this all turns into a line with maybe some extra storms out in front of that. Those prefrontal supercells right there, that could be very intense right there. But this line of thunderstorms continues to develop and move into the tomorrow time frame with some prefrontal cells developing. But yeah, right today, supercells fire off around 3 p.m. They move forward into the Illinois, Ohio area. They die off by about 10, but we also see the redevelopment of some supercells around 8 p.m. sunset. Yeah, 7, 8 p.m. around sunset. These storms develop near Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, and those continue to move off into the risk zones. So this looks to be the highest threat for tornadoes in the area that the SPC has outlined. So in these areas right here, where that significant tornado threat seems to be maximized. Now, looking at the significant tornado parameter, basically what the tornado's energy right here, this is a kind of combination of all the parameters at the tornado, like CAPE, energy, and the helicity, the wind shear, and everything. As we move this forward, you can see really just along that warm front, where we have this warm front's going to be kind of just chilling right in the Michigan, Illinois, Indiana area. And right up against that, you're going to see the highest shear values. So the highest values where that rotating wind is going to be, and where the CAPE in the difference in the convergence is going to be maximized. As you can see, anything above this little dark gray color can produce tornadoes. We have got pockets of dark pink and going into pink and purple. That's going to be very insane. Like, this is going to be destructive. If we look at the go over here toward the let's take a look at mixed layer CAPE. So the convective available potential energy, or the storm juice. This is going to be insane. This is insane values for March, especially early March. We're looking at values in the 3,000s, 4,000s area, right up against this warm front. And moving into the night, still, we're seeing 2,000, 1,000 joules per kilogram, which is the measurement they measure that in. So this is our 3-kilometer CAPE, the lower level CAPE. This is really good for storm development. Just going to briefly touch on this. We need about 50 for tornadoes. We're looking at about 100, 120, some of these areas. So more than adequate for tornado development overnight tonight and into tomorrow. Now let's take a look at our southern target here into Texas and Oklahoma. So as you can see, storms are going to wait off a little bit longer. So probably about 5 p.m. when storms really start firing. If you zoom in, you can see these white little hail cores. These are going to be very intense. These are going to be very significant hailstorms today. That significant tornado parameter seems to be maximized right in that southern area. So maybe a locally higher tornado chance in southern Texas near the border there, up into the kind of Abilene, San Angelo area right there. That's going to be where that tornado threat is going to be maximized. So moving forward, as you can see, line of supercells, cellular development, even into Texarkana, we've got supercells. As you can see, we've got a huge area of supercells. Now, the confidence for storms up here is a lot less than we have down here, but into the night tonight, mainly this afternoon, we have a very significant threat of some big hailstorms and some significant tornadoes down here, as well as that threat for damaging winds. As you can see, kind of bowing out, these little storms be bowing out into damaging wind segments right there. So that little bow overnight into the night. Taking a look at that CAPE there, the energy, we've got a lot down here, a lot more down here because of the Gulf and everything that we have down here. So we've got 3,000 to 2,000, about that same, maybe even areas of locally higher 4,000s, but more than adequate enough for severe thunderstorms. And this is going to continue into the day, into tomorrow, and that's going to really move off before we get redevelopment on tomorrow and in for that risk. This is the simulated reflectivity for tomorrow. So taking a look at tomorrow's risk, this risk area that we have right here, the day 2 risk. I'll just go ahead and put the model on this. So we have a giant, expansive, slight risk, with the main risk up here being tornadoes in the Ohio Valley, or the Ohio Valley into the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, these areas. They have a pretty strong risk for decently significant tornadoes tomorrow, not anything crazy that we're seeing today. And then another hot spot down here into Tennessee, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana going into tomorrow. So going forward on our simulated reflectivity, you can see those storms that fire off today, really big hailstones, really big hailers. We can see 72 dBz. That's a lot of hail, especially on a simulated model. So if we go forward into tomorrow, this model run is very messy. I really don't like the way this is looking. I mean, I don't believe this is going to happen on how messy it is, but take this with a grain of salt. Take everything with a grain of salt. But I think this is going to this is less confident, obviously, as it goes farther out, but it looks like a giant mess up here. Doesn't look like anything crazy you can see. But obviously, we have prefrontal storms from the main front and just a ton of possibly supercells down here, some sort of development. And then down here in the south, we've got a kind of redevelopment of a line here and a low pressure system with a isolated tornado threat with any storm that develops out in front of this kind of line that we have here. So I'm going to take a look at a different model. We're going to take a look at a different model as a different simulation from this, because this is very messy and I don't really know what to take of this. It's a very thing. So let's take a look at all of the models that we have available to. So this is the NSSL MPOS RN3. This is an experimental model. We're going to take a look at this. This has been decently accurate over the season. You can see big supercells developing. The HRRR is probably more onto that. But moving into tomorrow, as you can see, we've got a kind of line developing. We have that line over there. A lot less convection you can see on this model. You can see a lot less storms here, but a decently significant threat for some prefrontal on the front type supercells right there out in front of the line in Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama. As you see, that line kind of comes through, and we can see a very maximized tornado threat right along that line and in those any storms that fire in front of that line that can continue to become discrete and before they merge into the line, produce tornadoes. But looking farther south, we can see, let's do this sector. Actually, never mind. Let's do this one. Okay. So confluence bands, possibly. That's a little area where storms ride up against that boundary right there where convergence is. So you can see little supercells along that line and going into the line. Those areas could produce some tornadoes, some development. But as we go forward, you can see it mostly just looks like a linear storm moving into the night with that embedded tornado threat. And any storms that fire in front of this line, if they do, could be very violent, very strong, because we have a pretty primed environment here. Take a look at the significant tornado parameter. Not as crazy as it is today, but a very good area right there around 2, 3, 4 up here into Tennessee, 1 to 2. Like I said, anything above a 1 can produce decent tornadoes. So we can see a pretty strong threat from this STP value. Now looking north. Looking up here in the Northeast, we have probably a worst case scenario here. We've got supercells developing into the warm sector, over into the day, into the Washington, D.C. area, New York area over the day. Discrete storms in that line kind of finally moves through. And then it looks weird because this model has a kind of like storms developing and that line kind of weakening, and then it kind of moves up, and then it just turns into rain. But obviously, this model has some strong storms developing over here. That significant tornado parameter also gets maximized kind of around this boundary right here. This might be the warm front as well for this side of things. So we might have to keep looking at this, but it's a lot clearer solution than the HRRR. But remember, this model is experimental. The HRRR is better, but take this with a grain of salt. This is not like this is going to happen, and stay tuned to what the National Weather Service is saying. So this is another thing that is in development. This is the Warn-On Forecast model. So this model is very high resolution, but it is experimental, and don't think any of this as being real. Just take everything you're seeing. The HRRR, the first model we looked at, is the most accurate in what will probably happen. But this is also another thing we could look at. to see. So that's why I'm putting it at the end here. So this is the simulated reflectivity. And going forward, you can see that one supercell we saw on the HRRR, those one that broke into that group, continues to ravage through Illinois. That looks like a pretty strong storm there. You can see we don't go out very far, but you can see more development back there. You can take a look. Let's take a look at the other members. This is member 2. A lot of supercells out there. Member 3, 4, 5. You get the point. There's a lot of members, and all of them are showing at least some sort of storms developing here. As you can see, let's take a look at the let's see here. Mid-level updraft helicity percentages. So as you can see, the models develop all this. This is in account with all the members. You can see this is the updraft helicity. So the tracks and everything, not the tornado tracks, but the tracks of the storms and where they're going to be the most strong. And as you can see, all of the models are showing a hot spot in central Illinois. And this doesn't go out all the way. So this is not going to be the only area, but a hot spot for this area in the next coming hours looks to be a very, very probable, honestly. The HRRR is agreeing on it. All the models are agreeing on it. And now these experimental worn on forecast models are agreeing with this. Thank you guys for watching. This is going to wrap it up for today's video. Hope you guys stay safe out here in these severe storms, especially up here in Illinois, where I think we have the biggest threat for significant tornadoes. I would have done a longer video, but I do need to get this out before these storms actually happen. And expect another video that I've been working on for a little bit about the SIG risks and the SPC risks. So if you watch this video today and you didn't understand everything about that, stay tuned in the next couple of days once the severe weather dies down and I'm done tracking everything and posting more videos about this. Check that video out. It'll probably be dropping on the 12th or the 11th. So tomorrow or Thursday, we're going to be posting this video. And you guys will be able to learn everything about the new SIG risks and what happens with them. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for watching. Goodbye.